Halim Shebaya. He joins us now live as well from the Lebanese capital. Thanks so much for being with us, Halim. I want you first, because of this day, this 1 month anniversary, where we saw, political leaders, whatever there is left of the political leadership in Beirut, as well as so many just Beirutis come out onto the streets, marking that moment of silence, remembering the tragedy that happened a month ago. Tell us what you've been feeling now over this past month, witnessing the capital and the country trying to recover from this.
I think we've been in a collective time of grief as a whole in the last month. Some of us, unfortunately, who lost loved ones and family members have been in a more pronounced period of grief. For people like me who luckily did not lose somebody very extremely in my close family, from my close family members, I think it's also a huge shock. And I think for the very first time, for me having been, for example, born and raised during the time of the Civil War and having witnessed many such things and explosions in Beirut, this really was very different. And the post-trauma or post-traumatic feelings that I've witnessed, I think were nothing like I've witnessed before. And as I mentioned, I use the word grief because I think we're collectively, and I'm personally, we're grieving the loss of a city that we loved, areas in Beirut that were destroyed where we used to frequent all the time. Some of us used to live there. I used to live there for a few months. So it's really been a state of disbelief, denial maybe at times, feeling down, feeling hopeless. But as also you mentioned in the introduction, a lot of rage, a lot of anger, a lot of feeling that something needs to be done. Right. Justice needs to be served for the victims, and it should not be business as usual. So it's this combination of mixed feelings, really.
Right. So where is Lebanon headed then? I mean, particularly in the political arena. Do you think, what's happened now in the protest movement that we've been witnessing for months and months and months in Lebanon, will that movement actually be able to produce its own desired leaders, or are we going to continue to see kind of more of the same, just this reshuffling of the political elite in Lebanon, because it seems very difficult to fill this massive void that's now there?
I think politically, the major political initiative that took place in the last month has been the one of the French President Macron, who visited Beirut twice. But unfortunately, it comes with many shortcomings, and precisely the one that you mentioned, what a lot of us are fearing, that it is just going to give the current political regime a lifeline. Now, of course, politically, one has to be pragmatic and say, as the French president said, these are the political powers that now form the parliament, and thus we should deal with them. And this, unfortunately, seems to be the way in which, up until now, the international powers are leaning towards, giving this political regime a lifeline with 2 months, so to speak, as a trial period or as an ultimatum where they need to really effect serious reforms, especially in the electricity sector, have a deal with the IMF, conduct a thorough audit for the central bank. However, if we want to see and ask where does the protest movement fit in there, while it is true that currently there isn't one leadership for this protest movement, but I think the underlying question is, should this political regime be allowed to just continue as usual after something as big as the Beirut explosion took place? Secondly, we cannot expect from a protest movement to come right away with ready-made answers and clear alternatives, given that it's coming against a political regime that is rooted for 15 years in the Civil War, then for 30 years. But what I think the last period has shown us, and especially last night with the report that we've seen about the rescue teams, was that there has been this renewed sense that actually when Lebanese citizens and people who are on the streets and on the protest movement can, if given the chance, provide a better alternative. Because again, this whole question of a void and of an alternative, also we should ask ourselves, what is it an alternative to? And given, I think that now it's become, it's not a populist statement to say that the political regime in Lebanon has shown itself to be incompetent. I think we can expect new leaders to emerge if given the chance.
Okay.
And obviously, this chance will need to come through proper organization of the street movement, as well as having resources to engage in parliamentary elections, because engaging in parliamentary elections needs money and organization.
Indeed. Speaking of money, I mean, I have to ask you this. On the economic front, what is Lebanon actually supposed to do now? What is it going to do now in terms of rebuilding and resettling hundreds of thousands of people who've been left, homeless or displaced? You were already facing bankruptcy before this explosion happened. There's not a lot of trust in loaning money to Lebanon, especially with a political regime that isn't trusted by its own people. So economically, we've said before, Lebanon is staring into the abyss. What really has to happen to logistically rebuild this country now?
I mean, the key word that international donors are saying when it comes to the economy and when it comes to aid and when it comes to, for example, the SADR conference in the money that was committed in the SADR conference in Paris, is the word reform. So the Lebanese government has to show clear signs that practical and tangible steps of reforms are taken in various fields. And obviously, it will start with the restructuring of the banking system that was a big part of the cause of the collapse of the economy. Also coming up with a proper capital control law that deals with everybody in the same way, and that also sets the path towards depositors feeling that not all their money is going to be lost and that they may be able to return some of them in the next 5 or up to 10 years. And also, the key thing, again, related to reforms is that how the ministries are being managed, and especially we're talking about the energy ministry, the public works ministry, all of these. I think there has to be a serious and clear signs that it's going to be dealt with more transparency and less corruption, basically less of what has been taking place so far.
Halim Shebaya, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for being with us from Beirut.